Now, throughout the stock market, there's of course more income dividend focused investments, such as different stocks or ETFs that might pay you a much higher yield right off the bat, and there's other stocks and ETFs that are much more growth focused. And throughout my 7-figure portfolio that you can see right here on the screen, I hold several of both. But in this video, we're going to go through 4 different high quality, ultra high quality in my opinion, dividend paying ETFs that offer a nice starting yield, but also offer growth potential because of the unique strategies on top of that. Now, what I mean by this is that every single one of these ETFs are going to pay you a decent amount right off the bat, but also have the potential to grow over time, making your net worth grow also, hopefully sometime in the future. So if you want to see which 4 ETFs I think offer unstoppable income right from day one and in the future, make sure to stick around, drop a like down below, and let's get right into the first one. Real quick, for those that haven't already, make sure to go to the first link in my description and grab my new dividend investing ebook, where I share exactly how I went from $0 invested to now earning over $6,000 on a monthly basis and over $1 million invested in the markets. Along with the ebook, you're also going to receive my custom dividend tracker, where you can track your dividend progress on an ongoing basis and reach your dividend investing goals. So make sure to grab yourself a copy of my dividend investing ebook and the new dividend tracker today. It's the first link in my description. Now, the first ETF that I have to include in this video that I think is going to offer investors unstoppable income, and definitely has done so since inception, is one of my favorites, one of my largest income focused ETFs. I'm talking about JEPQ, or the JP Morgan Nasdaq Equity Premium Income ETF, which I currently own over 500 shares of across my long-term portfolio. Now, JEPQ, of course, is a premium income ETF that offers exposure to the Nasdaq 100, but also because of the strategy that this ETF uses with the use of cover calls, offers investors a ton of income from day one. Now, even though JEPQ is income focused, this ETF has also been growing consistently over time. Over the last 2.5 or so years now, the ETF is up around 13.7%, and this is not even including the massive yield that this ETF has paid to investors like myself over the last several years. Now, JEPQ has an expense ratio of 0.35%, so you are going to have to pay a lot more to have exposure to this one compared to something like the VOO ETF or SCHD, but because the way this ETF works is a bit more complicated, I think that the expense ratio is more than fair. Now, even though JEPQ, like I said, has been growing over time, on the 1 year it's up over 18%, this ETF does offer unstoppable income like I promised. The ETF as of recently has paid anywhere from 49 cents on a monthly basis, 55 cents, 56 cents, and then ever since inception, this ETF has paid anywhere from around 30 cents upwards to 60 cents plus on a monthly basis. And these dividends, the amount of income that JEPQ pays, is going to depend on what happens within the market, such as volatility, option premium prices, etc. But overall, even on the low end of things, this ETF has offered investors like myself unstoppable income. And as of recently, I don't know if you guys have heard me talk about this, but I have actually been buying a lot more JEPQ in the last few weeks, even though this ETF is a lot more expensive than when I first started buying it years ago. So all in all, as far as an income-focused investment that's also going to grow over time, at least in my humble opinion, JEPQ is one of the best to do it across the board. Now, another ETF that's going to offer you unstoppable income right from day one, but also has grown like crazy over time, is one of my other favorites, ticker symbol DIVO or DIVO, the Amplify CWP Enhanced Dividend Income ETF, which is up over 19% in the 1 year, and over the last 8 years is up over 67%, once again, not even including those massive dividends. Now, this ETF utilizes a very unique enhanced income strategy where it buys into a small basket of holdings, say 20 or 30 different names like Visa, Caterpillar, names like Apple, Home Depot, Microsoft, etc. And then within this basket of holdings, DIVO is going to sell cover calls on individual names, which is how this ETF pays so much yield right off the bat. Now, the expense ratio for DIVO is kind of up there at 0.56%, but once again, with any of these ETFs that offer complicated strategies, I think once again it's more than worth it. Now, DIVO also pays you every single month to the tune of around 15-16 cents every single month for an ETF that costs around $40 per share, and keep in mind this ETF, at least since inception, has been trading up and to the right significantly. So what I personally love about DIVO, and the reason I own so much DIVO across my long-term portfolio, is that this ETF gives you exposure to some of the top names in the market. Like I said, names like Microsoft, names like Apple, names like the Home Depot, different individual stocks, but along with that cover call overlay, you're going to have exposure to around a 4.5% yield right off the bat. And honestly, DIVO is one of the perfect ETFs for an investor to look into, especially if you're not trying to get rich overnight, but you want consistent income along the way, and you want exposure to assets that have grown over time consistently. The next single ETF that's offering investors unstoppable income ever since inception is one of my other favorites, SPYI, the NEO's S&P 500 High Income ETF. Now, this ETF offers a very unique strategy which gives you exposure to the S&P 500, but then as you guessed it, utilizing options also offers a ton of income right from day one, which is somewhere around 12% as of right now, which is a massive amount of income to receive, especially when you're having exposure to the S&P and when this ETF has been growing like it has been. On the 1 year time frame, SPYI is up over over 10% on the max time frame. Keep in mind it's only been trading since around August of 2022, but the ETF is up around 7.5%. Not bad whatsoever, especially because you're receiving massive amounts of income right from day one. The expense ratio for this one is 0.68%, so we're getting up there now. Remember, with some of these strategies, you're going to have to pay a pretty penny to have exposure to. But what we really want to talk about is the income potential with something like SPYI. At least since inception, we're talking anywhere from 48 to 55 cents every single month for an ETF that costs around $50 per share. Now, this means that as of right now, if you buy a share of SPYI, you're probably going to get paid anywhere from 48 to 55 cents the following month, which is a massive return. Again, especially because this ETF is only $50 per share. Now, even though this ETF is relatively new, I do personally believe in the underlying strategy. I've talked about this ETF on my channel before, so definitely check out some of my other videos. And this is an ETF that I currently own upwards of 800 to 900 shares of across my portfolio. Now, even though SPYI is probably not going to make you stupid rich off of the actual capital appreciation just because the way this ETF works, it still has been trading up into the right and been paying you massive unstoppable income ever since the inception of the fund. And for these reasons and more, if investors want exposure to the S&P 500 but want to do so in an income-oriented way, I personally always think of SPYI as one of the top names to look into ASAP. Now, the last income-oriented ETF that offers investors, or at least has offered investors, unstoppable income at least up until this point is one of my newer favorite ETFs, the Goldman Sachs Nasdaq 100 Core Premium Income ETF, or ticker symbol GPIQ. Now, this is more or less a JEPQ ETF competitor. The only thing different about this ETF, and again, I have talked about all these ETFs individually on my channel, so definitely look into that. But this ETF, instead of selling out the money cover calls on the Nasdaq, this ETF only utilizes a small portion of the fund to sell cover calls, which could potentially offer a lot more upside than that of JEPQ. Now, this is pretty apparent because, as you can see, since October of 2023, this ETF, which of course is more income focused, has grown over 27%, and that's not even including the yield, which is massive. Not to mention the expense ratio for GPIQ is pretty cheap at 0.29%. This ETF is one of my favorites as of right now if you want Nasdaq exposure, which I personally do, and if you want exposure through the Nasdaq in an income-oriented way. Now, to talk about the actual yield for this one, we're talking around 10%. There's consistent 39 to 41 cent payouts every single month since inception, and it seems like as of right now at least, they're going to continue to do so at a similar cadence. So I can't speak for everyone, but getting exposure to the Nasdaq 100 and getting paid around 40 cents per share per month, and along with that having massive exposure to upside because of the underlying strategy that GPIQ employs, this ETF is one of my favorites as far as income goes, but also as far as growth goes on top of that. So those are 4 ETFs that at least up until this point have offered unstoppable income for investors like myself personally, because I personally do hold on to every single one of those, but also as I showed you guys, every single one of those ETFs also have the potential to grow over time too. Now, what's great about the stock market these days and all the different ETFs and the products out there for us investors to invest into is that you don't have to just buy into something and only get paid income, or buy into something and only have growth exposure. You can find different ETFs for the market that might offer you a bit of both in every single way, shape, or form. But what I'm noticing is that a lot of investors out there these days, even younger investors, maybe younger than ever, are seeking different investment options that are going to offer a lot more income a lot sooner. Because let's be real here, even to some of us younger investors, cash flow is very important. At least it definitely is for me. But now that we went through all 4 of those different ETFs that have offered unstoppable income, at least since inception, I want to hear from you guys down below. What's the number 1 ETF that you personally own or are buying into as of recent that offers unstoppable income but also can grow over time too? Drop the ticker symbol in my comments down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like on it and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.